Hello, everybody, and welcome to Here We Go Again. What is happening in Israel? Are we calling it What's Going On in Israel? We're still working on the final name. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. As you all may know, we've been doing a podcast for a long time called Here We Go Again Israeli Politics. We have recently decided to upgrade and move to video format. It's a change. We're working on it. We got our studio set up. It will be getting better. Both audio and video will be getting better from week to week. So bear with us. What we do in this podcast is we discuss the political events of the week that happens. We give the information on the political event and then give our views and discuss it more in depth. This week we have a very interesting episode. Why don't you give us a little rundown on what will be discussed, and we hope you enjoy.
So we'll be discussing three major topics. We had President Biden essentially attacking Israel on it's going into Rafah and the political ramifications of that. We have big cancellations on the events that are supposed to take place around this time of year in Israel because of the war for different reasons. We're going to discuss the ramifications for the future, what precedent we set, and what we think about it. And the Army had a series of appointments of high-ranking officials that was very controversial in the public. Was it the time? Is it not the time? And these characters themselves will all be brought up in today's episode.
Deep, in-depth conversation. You can listen to us anywhere. Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts. We're going to have a good time. Thank you for joining us. Here we go again. What is going on in Israel? Okay, so for the first topic of today.
Our first topic is going to be what has the entire political world in an uproar. So President Biden goes on a town hall on CNN and makes some insightful comments about the situation in Israel. He goes, and I quote, "I made it clear that if they go into Rafah, they haven't gone into Rafah yet. If they go into Rafah, I'm not supplying the weapons that have been used historically to deal with Rafah, to deal with the cities, to deal with that problem," Biden said. That wasn't me screwing up the quote. It's just a little convoluted. And you have many, many reactions to this, both in the U.S. and in Israel. Speaker Johnson went on an interview with Politico and stated that this is essentially Biden reneging on a deal to pass the $95 billion foreign aid package. And he stated that he's defying the will of Congress. And even what his own top officials have stated, that he's going against the stated policy both of Congress and of the White House. And it would be devastating policy and catastrophic to our closest ally in the region. In Israel, you had Netanyahu only recently finally got up and said that if we'll deal with it, if we have to do it, we'll do it alone, and we'll fight we'll hang on by our fingernails. Ben Gvir said essentially that Biden loves Hamas. And Gantz even went on.
Well, not accurate. He said that Hamas loves Biden.
True.
It's a bit. We'll touch on it in a minute, but it's a big difference.
And you had places in the United States. The New York Post had the cover on page 6. Israel betrayed by Biden as it moves to finish off Hamas, and many other reactions. So before we get to all of the reactions on it, what's your take on this? Is this, as Speaker Johnson stated, a senior moment? Is this a presentation of actual American policy, or is this just a slip-up?
So I think that, there's so much to talk about this topic, and there's so much to delve into the intricacies and the results of it, but I think that it comes down to, it almost is really a question of what's the next step. And I want to we'll discuss in a moment what I think Israel should do, what Israel should have done. But in the end, it's very interesting where I think that this is a game changer, and it is going to cause many things for the future. But I also think what's interesting is to see how much America is attacking itself on this topic. And that's what I think is the interesting part to see. Normally Israel, we're the best at farting with ourselves. Okay, no matter what we say, our opposition is going to attack it and the news are going to attack it, or going to make ourselves look bad no matter what we do. America doesn't always work that way, especially not when it comes to Israel. And what's very interesting here to see is we technically almost now recently BB has said something as we're recording this Thursday evening, so it was about Thursday afternoon. He made a comment, but except for that, this is not something that was really officially discussed in Israel. But on the American side, Biden is getting rocked for this decision. And we're even seeing the most interesting part is that Biden himself or the administration is sending signals that it wasn't exactly what we meant. And don't worry, we're obviously going to still back you up. We're going to give it to them. They understood that this was a mistake. And I think that's the more interesting part to say. It is not just what caused the decision, not how much it will affect us, but how much it will actually affect Biden and his administration, that they are seeing the backfire and the backlash for their decision.
But this isn't the first time that they've made this statement. We've had statements in the past where they've gone on even when they go to the college campuses, where haven't been very hasty to condemn any of the protests on college campuses, or even if they do, they condemn it with condemning Israel along the way. It seems like this is a general take that they're going down. It doesn't seem to be that they're going on that they will learn from this mistake. It hasn't been that the White House has issued clarifications on this.
I think, again, but when they're saying that the cabinet has sent signals saying that Biden, was a little bit extreme in his comments, that's not what he meant. It means that they're fearful of what the situation is, in my opinion. They're understanding and they're seeing the backlash that's happening across America, because a lot of people don't understand is that, many liberals as well, many liberals, maybe they don't like violence, they don't want the war to happen, they love for peace to thing, but they still stand on defending Israel. They still stand that bringing in weaponry to defend Israel is needed, and that is, I think, where Biden is making his crucial mistake, and that is where I think that we are going to see on our side that the difference is, you were saying before that it was something that's been happening till now, but we all know the massive difference politically and internationally between doing something vaguely and doing something head on. Okay, they made very vague comments. This is the first time historically that they've made a physical act.
That's not true.
And by the way, I agree with you, and that's what they're stating. You know what came out right now, that their plan is for it to be a secret. That was the 100%. This just shows how much they try to control. How much of the Israeli life America controls like a puppet, but they try to keep it as if they're not controlling. They stopped our weaponry to pressure us and make sure that we don't do something that they decided, but they wanted to keep it a secret. You know why? Because it looks bad for them. Because they are actively going against Israel.
Well, no, it's just stupid tactics. As in, the most basic rule of any bad news is get it done with. As in, if it's going to get published, then make sure that the news cycle is as short as possible. And what seems to me is that we're going down the road here, and that the United States is pushing this war on endlessly. Essentially, the same thing happened with Ukraine. You've gone on more than 2 years now of war, 2.5 years even, and essentially because the United States can't finish it. As in, if you had, give or take 4 months ago or 5 months ago, said, do it, finish this off, you would have had, fine, maybe a few bad weeks of press for Biden on the left, and then you're done. This isn't in the news anymore.
Well, I mean, I could say
suffering's actually over.
You could say that about almost every war in most places, okay? This is Israel's problem as well, 100%. If you just do the war, you finish the war, you do it quick, it happens, then it ends and everyone moves on.
I mean,
okay?
most wars don't end quickly because you're fighting a side that's hard to beat. I'm not saying it's very easy to beat Hamas, but you don't have military difficulty here. You're not lacking the firepower or the manpower.
Well, you're not lacking the firepower for complete annihilation. You are lacking the firepower for even on Israel standards without America, even on our standards that we accept from the IDF, our ability to destroy Hamas with bringing the least casualties as possible, doesn't mean without casualties, doesn't mean risking people's lives for casualties, but with the least as possible that we can, we still do not have, in my opinion, we do not have enough weaponry for that.
Well, no, because I think you do it wrong.
Because we base ourselves on American missiles. That's what we do.
Even without that, because you don't conquer land, as in, not even conquer as in it's mine now, as in, even in the north, you took it and then you gave it up, and then they came back, and then you went back in again.
I mean, that's also a matter of the amount of soldiers that we have there. They don't want to keep thousands of soldiers there.
You don't need to keep them for 7 months. Just take meter by meter by meter by meter. It could have been done in a matter of weeks. It's not that far. You can walk from Israel to the sea.
Okay,
It's really not far.
Okay, but now we're getting to a more complex conversation on whether or not whether or not any of the people involved have a plan to finish this war. And I agree. That's a big, complicated situation. You know, in the end of the day, it's not something that's discussed much, but you know, the Israeli political system is built upon this conflict, and it's built upon this conflict continuing. Now, am I saying I'm being careful with my words? Am I saying that someone's sitting there saying, "Oh my God, we have to make sure that this conflict continues"? No, I don't think it's that cruel and this conspiracy. Do I think that in the end of the day, this country, especially when we look a year and a half back into the extreme conflict that we had in the judicial reform, which really just showed the inherent differences between the liberal, non-religious side of the country to the religious Zionist side of the country, is that I think that we're all held by this conflict. And I really believe that if this conflict is solved, if right now, within 3 weeks, we just done, there's no more Gaza. It's done. And then what we did with it, who cares? It's a no man's land. We decided to make it into Gush Katif. Whatever it is, there's no more Gaza, which would result really in the North not being a security risk either, because if you really originally destroyed Gaza completely, then the North would be scared to continue as well. Let's say that happened. I think that within 6 months to a year, our country is in a catastrophic situation politically. I think that it
You're there anyway.
Yeah, but now you're hiding it. The difference is 100%. You're talking about a couple that's in a horrible relationship, but have children they have to take care of. So our children we have to take care of right now as a country is Gaza. Okay? Well, not taking care of Gaza. I'm saying taking care of the conflict. Once there's an issue, we have to make sure and then, put everything behind us and forget the fact that we don't like each other and we don't agree on a single thing. Forget that. We have something more important to deal with, which is our lives. Now, that's true. But when you solve that problem, convert it to relationships, when your kids move out of the house and there's no more kids in the house anymore, suddenly you're like, wow, we do not like each other. The only problem is that in divorce, you can move out and go to separate homes. We don't have a separate home to live in.
Well, no, your argument here is for federalism.
Why?
Essentially, what you're arguing here for is that the best way for you to get along is to not be together. And that doesn't necessarily mean secession. It could be federalism, i.e. you have city-states, essentially, that each one, you give them as much power as possible to govern themselves, and then people don't bother each other, and then only on big decisions do you make it together.
So, I mean, it's funny. I think that's a great conversation to have separately. I 100% think that the municipal councils and the cities should have way more power, way more influence, and they should be able to make most decisions regarding education and budgeting and taxes. I think taxes should be different from city to city, and you get to choose if you want to live in a high tax-paying city and get more social benefits, or do you want to live in a cheaper tax-paying city and get less benefits. And that's a decision that each one should be able to make. It'll make properties prices change. I think that's definitely positive. But I'm not saying that I think the country's split. Absolutely not. I'm saying what I believe that's not being discussed enough, is that power players in the country are so scared of that happening that they are making sure this conflict doesn't end. And I think this is true internationally as well. I think it's true in the United States as well. I think in the United States, they also focus many times on wars abroad because it slightly distracts from the terrible issues that America is having and the terrible breakage that's happening between the Democratic and the Republican side, which is really just this tent that's like you were showing. But the American population is so split today, and I think that the more they focus on other things, the less they have an action to split. And even now, by the way, even when now they're fighting over Israel, it's not causing America to split. Like, obviously, it's splitting in their disagreement. It's not like, coming, oh, you support Israel, not support Israel. We should have two different countries. No, we're going to fight around this topic and figure out what's best. And I think that is the fear that many people do not want this war to end.
So, I don't think that's true, because it's less. I don't think it's that they don't want a war to end because they afraid of the outcome in that scenario, because as you mentioned, kids moving out. If you take the analogy of, let's say the kid with training wheels on, eventually the training wheels need to come off and you need to learn to ride a bike. As in, you can't always have the safeguards or the railing.
Wait, who is that for? Who is using the?
No, the training wheels would be in the scenario is the republic that you live in, the society, needs to learn to stand on its own without a foreign force keeping it in check. By the way, there are
no. Again, you're saying that Israel has to learn how to be more sustainable itself. We know that for sure.
There are clear benefits. Crime is very low compared to the world, and societal health is very high. Many of these things are a direct cause of having an outside threat.
Why? Oh, an outside threat. Okay.
But it doesn't mean that it can stay that way for a long time. I don't think those people believe it either. But before we go back to in Israel response to this, I do want to touch on American politics once again, because this isn't the first time that this has happened. This isn't even the first time this has happened with Biden. In 1982, when during the first Lebanon War, Menachem Begin, then the prime minister, went to a meeting with the head of the Foreign Affairs Committee, and he met a young senator from Delaware named Joe Biden, and Joe Biden said wanted to withhold any weapons sales to Israel on saying that selling weapons to Israel at the time could lead to a falling out between Israel and Lebanon.
What year was this?
1982.
Biden did that?
Yes.
How did I not see this? That's crazy.
This was on the news.
Biden already tried to stop weaponry. Okay, so by the way, what this is showing is it's so...
Well, no. The important thing that I want to stand on here was Begin's response. Begin goes and answers him, a relationship is not a one-way street. Sir, you cannot threaten us.
Clearly he can.
Well, no, at the time, it worked.
You know, I think it's crazy because it connects to something I've said many, many times. Biden, in this, many people would disagree with me, but Biden really cares about Israel. I believe that when Biden goes to bed at night, he believes that this is what's best for Israel. Granted, it's his political. He has his political run. I'm not saying he's perfect or he's so good, but I'm saying he when you're going back to 1982, where I'm assuming, I don't know if he was running for a certain office then at the time, locally, but in the end of the day, my main issue is it just shows that Biden back then also believed that his job is to control Israel. So it's not just about his opinion, which I could disagree with or agree with regardless. It's that he believes his role is to dictate Israel how to do it, and doing it by giving them or not giving them the weaponry. And my biggest issue with that is if that happened in 1982 and Biden was already in office and he's in office now, and we didn't make sure since 1982 to today that we can sustain ourselves by ourselves, then the issue is on us.
Of course, but now I want to go back to the Israeli response, because what Begin did, aside from saying you can't threaten us, was that he made it very clear what America's interest in this conflict were. As in, he stated, this is America's interest, or the interest of the free world, more accurately. And I'll quote to you the translation that they bring here. We are protecting the interest of the free world in the Middle East. Without Israel, American boots would be on the ground. We are also giving support to America's great protection, because with a threat on Israel here, you would have terror running rampant in the area. And this is what I believe Israel consistently misses the message. Because for 7 months, we have been losing flat out the war for the mindset in the world. And it's so easy to win. You don't even have to show the images, because you just have to show to the free world. Without Israel, tomorrow you have a terror state in the Middle East.
How do you show that?
You go on, you build essentially an entire platform. And I'm talking about, you go on, you have interviews, you have every dignitary that you have that can speak English well. That's a very important factor that you don't have.
Not so easy.
But every dignitary you have clear and concise messaging. You stay on point. You go through, you prepare ahead of time, and you go out in many interviews as possible. And you go on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. You flood them with clear.
You think you can beat out?
Without a doubt.
I think that's their number one weapon. The number one weapon they've been preparing forever is their media, is their ability to make a narrative. Okay, but they're great at it. They are great at it. They have hordes of people following
But
them.
it doesn't matter.
They know they are their number
You don't
one
need
people.
to. You don't need to, because America always work on self-interest. It's why essentially their political system works. If you can prove to them that it's in their self-interest or something, Americans will support you. They have a moral qualms.
No, I understand that, but I think it's
anyway.
deeper than that. I think it comes down to whether or not you care, whether or not you show it. You know, in the end of the day, when you are watching and seeing videos, so we see video of a Gaza child being bombed at and dying. Okay, and then they sit there and say, well, you know, we know that if we attack the Israelis on this, the Israelis will feel bad about it. But when you see a missile which is being shot directly at civilian population, no one even says a word to the Palestinians. Why are they not saying a word towards Hamas? Because Hamas is saying, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do. No problem.
Again,
I'm not hiding
just
it.
Don't apologize.
That's very different than what you were saying.
No, it's not.
I'm saying we're not going to beat the narrative. I'm just saying we're not going to apologize.
It's all part of the same coin. As in, you can't have. You have to. It's just clear messaging. You have to stand on point. This is Israel's policy. We're not apologizing for it, and we're doing it because of X, Y, Z. If you're going to America, the messaging has to be very clear. This supports American interests in the region. It's not just America. The biggest. Okay, you have two issues. You have the right and the left. If you're going on the right, America consistently, Israel loses the right because all the right sees is as a handout, and the right legitimately is afraid of that option because they don't like that every country in the world is essentially dependent on American foreign aid. You don't state that. You state this isn't a handout. Aside from the fact that Israel works with American army in tangent in developing technologies, in working in foreign nations, all of that's fine. But you are the only free democracy in the region. You, along with the other nations that are part of the Abraham Accords, put a check on Iran. You are part of the fact that you have free seas that go through the Middle East. Israel is a major factor in that. If you didn't have all of this, if you had a terror state that would now be threatening three major allies in the EU region, Egypt and Jordan are both American allies that America has treaty with. So is Saudi Arabia. Without Israel in the region, the point you need to be making is American interests. You have to play to their minds and not their hearts.
Very interesting. Okay, let's move on to our next topic.
So the other side of what we were discussing is essentially the Israeli response to this. So you had, as we mentioned, Netanyahu and Gantz's main responses, but then you had a differing response that was mainly focused on inner Israeli fighting. As in, you had Ben Gvir's response on Twitter was Hamas heart Biden. Because of that,
God bless
you had the head of the opposition, Yair Lapid, go out and say, if Netanyahu doesn't fire Ben Gvir today, he's putting the lives of every soldier in the army and every life and every citizen in this country at risk. And you had Matan Kahana from part of this government go on and saying with people.
Great, because he's in Gantz's party, so he's officially in this government now. Correct.
He's
right.
Remember, he's a
Yeah.
full-fledged member of this government.
You're right.
And he goes out and he says, with how people are acting in the news, how can we be surprised with America's responses? Half the reason we stayed in this government was so that we would continue to get ammunition. He went on later on to clarify and to go way backpedaling on what he said, but it seems to me that most of these are just using this as a jumping board or to jump off and say whatever they were going to say anyway. There wasn't anything new that was really said here out of these statements.
I think it's a little bit deeper than that. I think it's a question. First of all, 100%. It's all political. It's all each one trying to pull his way, get his other voter base. It's fun. But I think I think it comes down to a deeper question, and it go both directions. Whether or not Biden is doing this because he solely believes that it's right, doesn't mean that we agree with him, but he believes / his cabinet believes that it's right, or is it about the elections? Okay, that's the two questions you got to answer. Because if you're discussing that it has to do with whether that it has to do with what he really believes and what his cabinet really believes, and there he is. Then that's where they all come in saying there's disagreements. We have an agreement, but at the end of the day, America wants the best for us, and we have to figure out how to fix it with them, and we have to figure out how to do it. And all of these things are true. That at the end of the day, even when we disagree, exploding all of it is probably not going to help you out. The other side is saying, if this is about the elections, if I understand this is about the Michigan voters, that he wants the thing, then yeah, that's exactly Ben Gvir's statement. Biden, heart, Hamas. Well, Hamas, heart, Biden. Which again, why was that a crucial difference, by the way? Because he was not claiming that Biden loves Hamas. He didn't say that. Even Ben Gvir didn't say that. He was saying that Hamas loves Biden. And that was, it's almost even worse. It's basically saying, you don't even understand this, but everything you're doing is causing Hamas to win. It loves, all they want is for you to be able to go in. And I think that also when it comes down to the question, which is a complex question for all Jewry in America right now, but it's a question of bipartisan, of Israel. It's a question that's come up a lot within the last years. We all know that in the past, Israel has always stayed bipartisan and has always been, would never supported a specific candidate. And when you would go to AIPAC, you'd have all the candidates come and speak. And I think that this is a complex question that Israel is going through, and again, Jewry is going through, is what is that point in which we say, guys, cut the bullshit. Cut the bullshit. You need to vote for Trump. This is not a question. There's no doubt about it. And as a country, even as a country, by the way, other countries do it. America has done it to Israel. Okay? But when I'm coming and saying yes, now the question is, are we there yet? I still don't think we are.
So it's
but
not
we
about
have
you
to
need
know
to
where
vote
it
for
is.
Trump. That's dumb.
Well, it's not about Trump. Sorry, Trump is not relevant.
You hit Biden.
It's not about Trump. That's already the tactics of how you do it. But I agree with you.
No, it's a crucial difference.
I understand. The question is, are we coming and saying, as the Israeli government, Biden is dangerous for Israel? Biden no longer supports Israel. If you care about Israel, do not vote for Biden.
Again,
when is the point in which that comes in?
So that is exactly the point where I'm saying that, for example, is how you lose a battle. Because you went to that, you burnt every bridge. You need to be considerably more circumvent about it.
Why? I need to be more dangerous.
Wait. It's not about danger. Because if you go out publicly and you state Biden is bad for Israel, sure, you'll score some points on the right. And you might even score a few points on the left. But if you are more circumspect, you come under the table and you essentially attack their policies directly. And you attack what's bringing their policies to the table, be it Michigan voters, be it any other reasons. But you do it. And you go pounding on it. In the American public, you hurt them so much more than going on a direct attack.
You don't think that if Israel... Again, where's the direct attack? The idea of the attack has to be as a defense attack. I'm saying that the Biden administration needs to be fearful of the results of what they do. This is true with so many different topics.
Right. I'm just saying...
And I'm saying they need to know it is, because I need to know it should have been a statement the next morning. The second it happened, citizens of Israel, it's not even to America, you're talking to Israel. Citizens of Israel, unfortunately, we can no longer base ourselves on the Biden administration. Unfortunately. And we hope very much so that this will change. But at the current moment, we are on our own. And at the current moment, the Biden administration does not support Israel. That is exactly what needs to be said. Now, I want them a minute later to come and say, I want them to be scared because I believe, and this is why I want to discuss this for a second, I believe that if Israel makes it clear that Biden is dangerous for Israel, he loses the elections.
Without that.
Again, regardless of whether or not he'll lose it anyway. I'm not talking about I'm saying just on that topic.
But you burn a bridge.
They burnt the bridge. The whole point is you turn it in saying, that's why it has to be immediate. This is exactly connected to so many things about after the, on October 8th. On October 8th, you should have landed a bomb that destroyed the whole place because you had the legitimacy. That's legitimacy.
You don't have the government to do that because...
Of course I do. I have the legitimacy. He just stopped weaponry.
You don't have the government to do that.
What do you mean?
Because half of your government supports him. Because half of your government would love nothing more than something to hold them back from doing anything in Gaza.
Unclear. Most of our government, overwhelmingly, does not want America to stop weaponry. I don't agree with you.
It's not about stopping weaponry. It's about stopping anything in Gaza.
But that's not the conversation. It's not about Gaza. It's about America
forcing your hand.
Exactly.
They love nothing more than someone to force their hand.
I'm not sure. And either way, then that's what you take apart the government for. And if they don't, by the way, then Bibi's too weak.
I think he is.
But it's again a separate conversation. But the idea is that he should have been able to come and say, or at least even just the fear of it happening. And we know many factions where we do this always. But the fear should have been, and I think, by the way, that the American media wanted that, because the American media is bashing him without us. I think that it would have been an incredible move to come and say, as the people who are affected by it, we're not being offensive. We need to defend ourselves. Unfortunately, we understand today that Biden is no longer there for our defense. If he believed that you would do that, none of this would ever happen. Ever.
By the way, the fact that the ambassador, at a minimum, was not called to... it was not called.
Ambassador.
And sent home is abysmal.
Well, we can say that about Turkey. We can say that about
many countries.
That's the entire foreign policy issues that Israel has as a country. 100%. Were there any other comments that came up that were interesting?
So, not really. You had a bunch that were discussing different forms of aid that could come from other places, what led to this over the years, but nothing substantial. Essentially, everyone stayed on their own ground. The major ones here were Ben-Gvir, and on the opposite side would be Lapid, who was stating that you should be kicked out of the government.
Oh, so by the way, we'll finish with this. My whole idea is that I'm coming and saying, forgetting the character, and everyone always likes to attack Ben-Gvir. No matter what Ben-Gvir is going to write, he's going to be attacked. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if he just quotes what Yair Lapid will post, he'll be attacked for what Yair Lapid posted, just because it's on Ben-Gvir's Twitter. But that's exactly what the statement I wanted the government to say. I 100% supported that. Hamas loves Biden, and that was the message we needed to portray.
Yeah.
If you do that, we will make it clear to America that Hamas loves you.
But have the entire government on the same page.
No, you're never going to have the entire
Consistency.
No, that's like expecting the whole Democratic Party to agree with him. Of course not everyone agrees.
The Democratic Party has a message. Always.
Well, they didn't agree. No, Biden was attacked by multiple factions of the Democratic Party.
Okay, someone can make a statement and get attacked. But they have, on general points, they have messaging. They're very good at it. But we got to move on to another conversation. So, this week you had two separate announcements. You had the announcement by the city of Tel Aviv stating that the Pride Parade will not be happening this year because this is not the time for celebration. And in Meron, the bonfire for the Hilula of Rashbi, which is set to take place in give or take 2 weeks, is not happening because the army requested that it is security risk and therefore should not be taking place. Both of these being canceled for very different reasons. The question is, should either have been canceled? And once we cancel them, what's the precedent we're setting here?
So I think that, on the one hand, these two events have nothing to do with one another. And on the other hand, I think that they are directly connected. First of all, I'm going to give a little bit more of an expansion on what these events are. The Pride Parade in Tel Aviv is obviously well known, the biggest parade in Israel. Happens once a year. Is controversial for the reasons that gay parades all over the world are controversial and are not controversial, as in it always comes out in Israel an event around it. But mainly it is, the one of the biggest secular events that happen in Israel. And the Lag BaOmer festival in Har Miron is one of the, if not the largest religious event that happens throughout the year. I don't remember the exact numbers, but tens of thousands of people, if not hundreds of thousands.
I think it's
hundreds of thousands of people that go up to the mountain. For those who are listening might remember from the horrific tragedy that happened where we lost 45 people were unfortunately trampled and died for overcrowding in the event. So those are two massive events that happen for opposite sides of the spectrum. Why do I say opposite sides? Because, modern Zionists like ours don't take part in either of those events. We don't go to the mountains and don't participate in and the Pride Parade. But I think last week I wasn't even connecting it to Meron, but last week when the announcement came out that the parade was canceled, I thought about it, and I really said to myself, good for them. And it's hard for me because I don't like Ron Hudai, the head of Tel Aviv, the mayor of Tel Aviv. Not many people I hate in this country more than him. And as I stated when we were discussing the past, I don't know if it's some political move behind. Maybe it was a political move just to pressure about Meron, but I don't see how, because there's nothing more important throughout the whole year for Ron Hudai than the Gay Pride Parade. I think that the fact that they did that, to me, is something that I think that we are not strong enough to do. And I think we're not strong enough now either, because you're going to see Meron was not canceled by the Haredis. That's going to be the issue again. It wasn't canceled by the people who were involved. It was forced upon them. But the Pride Parade was canceled by the number one supporter in the country of the Pride Parade, the mayor of Tel Aviv. And I think that for them to be able to stand and say, this is not the time, and more than that, they're saying not the time, and your immediate reaction could be, oh, but it's political. Like, they're showing you it's so important to give a ceasefire and stop the thing, and bring back the hostages and whatever it was, and Bibi needs to go home, and it's so important that we're stopping the Pride Parade. Even if that was true, all of that, stopping the Pride Parade is massive, and I think that if they decide that was right, good for them.
So, I don't see it as a opposition to Meron. Meron has its own issues, and the main issue there would be, it's less a political statement on, let's say, the right, and more on the far religious factions who are having their own issues at the moment. The opposite of the Pride Parade, or what do we call the opposite, or as in the same event that happens on the other side, is the Flag Parade in Jerusalem, which is coming up in a month. It is a very big question. Does this Flag Parade take place?
And I would say it's the same debate. I agree with you. And also,
it's not the same debate.
No. I would say same debate that I was discussing before, because I agree with you. It's a better comparison, because also we have to say that the Pride Parade was canceled because it's inappropriate now, not the Pride itself. Inappropriate to be happy and dancing in the streets when there's still hostages and we're in the middle of a war. But the Meron Parade was canceled for security reasons. That's a very important distinction. Right. It was canceled because it's up north and it's dangerous, and honestly, it is really dangerous, because we know that Meron could be targeted.
We'll discuss that.
We'll get down whether or not it should have been canceled. Fine.
Let's go down to.
So I agree with the comparison. And I think that I just think it's a fair conversation to have on both. Because I'm going to come and say, just like I could sit and say, no, the Jerusalem Parade should happen anyway, because we should know how to stand strong and show that we're winning and show that we're positive. Wonderful. That could be said about the Pride Parade as well. Exactly. There's still pride in the world. We are still pride. We're still the proudest city in the world, Tel Aviv, and we should be standing and doing it for them. And the hostages would have wanted us to dance the Pride Parade. It's the same statement. Both claims to be made equally.
So no, it can't. I happen to agree with the statement that both should be done. As in, I don't think the fact that you're at war should be affecting this. As in, is it a more solace event? Yes. But the fact that you're at war, in a war that more than anything else is an attack on the spirit of your country. It has been 7 months where hundreds and thousands of your citizens have not been in their homes, where essentially the entire spirit of your country has been crushed. Yes, but happy events. And we'll discuss in a minute also what is essentially Israel's doing about the Independence Day. Yes, sorry, you're at a war, but you're at a war even though you're at a war down south, and you have threats up north, and you had hundreds of rockets thrown at you at Iran. You are still standing proud and strong. You are not in a threat for the existence of the country at the moment. And that is a very big and important statement, yes, and to stand up proud and strong and to shout in the wind. Yes, you had massive losses and they're terrible. And the fact that we have now brought hostages home hangs deeply in the heart of every single citizen of this country. But you cannot stop the country from moving, because essentially you lost the battle for the country's spirit. It's been crushed. Now, that doesn't mean if you want to say this isn't the time for joy because we can't handle this with hostages being there, I accept that, but the flag parade is a very different debate, because the flag parade is not about celebrating joy. It is essentially in its very heart is a celebration of a military victory. It is freeing our capital. It's celebrating the 1967 war.
Are you sure it's the flag parade and not the pride parade?
The flag parade.
Okay, we're talking about the flag parade.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
The flag parade is a celebration of a military victory, the 1967 war, where you liberated half your country, where 5 Arab countries attacked you and you won, where you weren't weak, where you weren't afraid. And this exact parade has been targeted multiple times in recent years by Hamas, saying, if you do this parade, we're going to war. And exactly when you went to war, bring it on.
Okay, so you just made 3 separate statements that are all important, but I don't agree with all of them. On your last one, 100%. I agree that for that reason, it should have been my last point. For that reason and that reason alone, the Hamas doesn't want us to do it. We have to do it and do it even bigger than ever before. Okay? Agreed. Great point. And I remember that. We were in the flag parade where missiles were shot at us. We had to lay down on the ground because they shot rockets towards Jerusalem when we were in the parade.
And that was the year that we still didn't go down to Jerusalem. You only stayed at the top. You never went down that year. There wasn't a parade.
No, agreed. I'm just saying that for that reason, I 100% agree with you. We must have the parade. For the second reason you had, which was basically saying that, it's showing the liberation that we had, but we're not liberated. We're not. Because half of your damn country is not in their homes right now. Half of your country, from the north and the south, are living in hotels because it's too dangerous for them. Sorry. In 2024, Israel is not a safe place to live. And that is coming from someone in the mouth that tells every single day that people should leave every single country in the world and come move here. Now, are there safe places in Israel to live? Of course. But if not every person in Israel is able to be safe in his home, it is not safe to live. And you want me to say how it stands strong? Because if in Judea and Samaria it was dangerous to live, but it was safe everywhere else, I would say it's not safe to live in Israel. Because it has to be safe everywhere. And to come dance a parade stating that it could, that we liberated ourselves when we're not liberated, to me is crazy.
But it's to remember your roots. It's exactly that.
No, that's the biggest fear. That's difficult to me. That's like saying
it's the only war you actually won. That in Yom Kippur War.
That's like, imagine, trying to think of land. Imagine us celebrating. Imagine we had a day that we celebrated getting Sinai. Yeah, but then we gave it back. We don't have Sinai. So you're celebrating the day that we got back Sinai, but we lost Sinai? So what are you celebrating? You no longer have it.
You still have Jerusalem?
You could celebrate Jerusalem. And that's fine if it's solely about Jerusalem. But you were saying before it's about liberation and about us winning a war and going through. How can you celebrate that when you're in the middle of a war? And how can you celebrate that when you're currently not liberated? You're just not. That's something that is very difficult for me.
So that brings us back to Meron. And I can't handle the army statement. Because essentially, when the statement is, we cannot have an event that isn't in the area that was told that everyone has
evacuate?
to leave. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Meron and Tzfat has been hit multiple times.
Tzfat was evacuated. I don't believe Meron was evacuated.
No, Meron is Tzfat. It's the same location. That's what they attacked Goldsberg for.
Okay, fine.
No, this is the thing. I think, this connects to many conversations we have about different political things as well, but I just need consistency. It needs to be an objective fact. I'm blind to who it is. I don't care who the factions are. I don't care what the event is. I care about the geographical location and the amount of people. If that's a decision, I can believe the decision that's dangerous right now. Because we know they have the ability to hit Tzfat, which means they can hit Meron. We know the Hezbollah has the ability to send direct missiles. We might, by the way, have direct intelligence that they have a plan to attack it. And if you're going to have, it's very different than saying I didn't evacuate your homes, where people have their bomb shelters. They're only a limited amount of people, and we know we get them out of there. Than saying, let's put 100 to 200,000 people on a mountain when I know that Hezbollah could directly attack them.
Great.
That's dangerous. Now, I'll agree with you. No, they can't. They're not there. There aren't 100, 2,000 people that distance.
Year.
What?
Every year.
Wait.
Then you're never going back.
This is what intelligence job is for.
Then you're never going back.
No, because we still have a war to do. That's like saying that they right now could attack people around living in their homes. That's like saying that it's getting to a whole other conversation about the fact that people don't live there right now. Okay? Yeah, this is a huge issue. We could discuss the North in general. But the idea of saying that putting 100 to 200,000 people on a mountain that we know is directly in the access of Hezbollah hitting them, to me is irresponsible. To me, shouldn't happen right now. It should have been canceled by the people itself. And then it sounds much more powerful. It's much smarter to do. The only thing that I would say that is important is to make sure that that's consistent. And if there's an event that's going to happen anywhere else, that we know is very important, then I want to make sure that is done. By the way, I do believe it. At this point in time, different than most of the times, I believe it. Omer Adam's concert was canceled. You know how big that is? You know how big that is for the country to cancel Omer Adam. To them, he's the most important fat person in the country. Okay? And they did. They canceled his concert. So, to me, it doesn't bother me as much. I think it shouldn't happen.
It's a statement of failure. As in...
You are failing!
No, sorry.
But you're failing. You can't fake it.
Sorry. You want to make that statement? Then Aluf Pikud Safon, the head of all operations in the North, get up and you make that statement. Don't hide. You and Ramatkal get up and make the statement and say, hi, we suck, we failed, we cannot protect you as a citizen of Israel.
Well, one second. Again, the fact that they should come up and saying it shouldn't hide behind the, when they say Gorem Tzva'i, the army said, what's the army? Someone made the decision. Agreed. That's true about almost any decision, that they should all stand in front of behind their words. But no, they are saying that. Again, people don't live in their homes. They're saying we are right now focusing on the South. We are not yet ready to focus on the North. It is irresponsible for us to go to war on both fronts at the same time. Agree or disagree, they're saying that. Therefore, you can't live in your home right now.
Okay.
I don't see any different.
So if Milan's a security concern, in a month we're gonna go back to the flag parade for a second. In a month we're gonna go there. What are the chances that a statement comes out from a official in Israel's security forces? An official in Israel's security forces has suggested that we cancel it because it's a danger having so many people in one place in Jerusalem. What are the chances that we cancel it?
The flag parade?
Yes. For security reasons.
Very high. Very high.
But you have demonstrations.
By the way, will we do it? Are we not going to do it? But
you have
will we
demonstrations
try?
that have just as large.
Not in those areas. Not that are planned. And I think that they are a problem as well. I think that there is a limitation to our democracy in Israel. And their ability to cancel that is none. By the way, I think their ability to cancel the Pride Parade would be almost impossible as well. I think it only works because it was self-done. I think they're going to have a serious problem stopping Miron. It's going to be a big problem. I think that there's going to be thousands and thousands of people that get on cars and buses to try to get up the mountain. They're going to have to stop them, probably not democratically at all. No idea how they could legally stop them, but they're going to figure it out. They're going to have to, I don't understand, you're going to close off the whole road and say that part of the country is closed off. It's going to be very complicated. There's only one event that they could cancel without a problem, which is the flag parade. The only event that you could ever cancel is an event that has to do with the religious Zionists, because we always listen to the rules. Any cop that tells anything, I remember you're sitting there, whether you're not allowed to go in this certain path. You talk about tens of thousands of people. There's just one female soldier sitting there with a little gate, saying, "No, you can't pass here." Okay, that was it.
And you waited for like 2 hours.
That was all the manpower we needed. She said no. And we stood there. Were we annoyed, by the way? I don't want to make people think that this was easy for us. This was really hard. This is sovereignty. This is the middle of Jerusalem. I could walk wherever it was. But the last thing I'm going to do is look at a soldier in the eye and not listen to that soldier. I know it wasn't her choice. She didn't make the decision. It came from above. We listened. So I think that there will be a force. Do I know if it will actually be canceled in the end? No. Do I think it's possible? Yeah, definitely.
So,
definitely.
Speaking of coming from above, this is around a week old at this point. We have new appointments in the Army. This is major news. 5 top positions have now been filled in the Army. We'll go over a few of them because they're important. Less about who they were filled with, but about the positions themselves. And what their ramifications were. So speaking of directives coming from above, a big event happened last week. This news is around a week and a bit old. We had a string of nominations in the Army. Appointments is more the accurate word. All of the top ranks in the Army that were open or soon to be open because of people stepping down, have been filled. Um, they were all filled by people who were a brigadier general. There was no generals moving around positions, which is a big statement. Um, some of them were surprising appointments, to say the least. And there was also one person who didn't get an appointment and was told he was going home, which we'll discuss at the end. Run through the appointments really quick here. So the first person that everyone heard about was that the head of the intelligence arm of the army, Aon Khalifa, was stepping down. He stated that once he has a replacement ready, he'll be stepping down. To his position was appointed Rosh Chativat HaMivtzaim, Brigadier General Shlomi Binder. There was a lot of talk about this, and we'll discuss that a little bit later. To the head of Pikud Merkaz, Central Command, Avi Blut. He served under the previous head of Pikud Merkaz as the head of Ugdat Ayosh, a very important position in the settlements. To the head of the Gis Tzfoni, and
Gais
Tzfoni and Faked Ma'achat Imrun, which is essentially, give a translation for that.
The head of ground troops and planning for different operations. It's an important position as well.
Was appointed Dane Goldfuss. He's been in the news a lot lately because he is one of the 4 brigadier generals who's been working in Aza, and he has been very vocal on some of his critique, let's call it, of the upper echelons of command. To the head of the Human Resources Department and set of the army is Baal Khalifa, another one of the brigadier generals who was in Aza. And last is Rosh Agaf HaTikshuv, is also Aviad Dagan, who is the last of the 5. So, just interesting statistics. Aside from the actual first religious, you have 3 religious alufim that are appointed this time. This is a very big deal. And I believe you have the first aluf that came from Mechinat Eli. For those who don't know, Mechinat Eli is well known for instilling in its students a true drive for the army. Nearly all of them try out for the Seirot and for expert combat units. Almost all of their students go on to serve in combat units in excellence. They go on to be officers in the army. Many of them have risen to many high ranks, but none have ever gotten this far. It's a big statement. It's also been discussed. They also have, sadly, the highest number of casualties. And it's been discussed that all of their students put so much into the army. How come none of the students have ever risen to this level? And this is the first one. And it's a big statement. But let's talk about the most controversial one of the bunch. The head of the intelligence forces, Shlomi Binder.
So I think that we need to discuss 2 things. One is we'll talk about Binder itself, and then there's about the appointments in general. Binder, it's very complex. On the one hand, generally speaking, he was a great head of Rachat HaMivtzaim, the head of all the operations unit in the army. He's well renowned, very respected. He's a good commander. On the other hand, he was personally in charge of managing October 7th. Most of the attacks on him against his thing is he was not, we have to understand is the head of the operations arm is in charge of all operations in the army, all logistics, all movement, all forces, everything is managed in that war room. Now, he's less being blamed like the head of intelligence was on October 6th at the night. He was less blamed for not being prepared, less blamed for the mistake. He's mainly being blamed for what was done on October 7th. It took hours and hours for the army to be able to prepare and take back the land and be able to, protect the citizens. And they failed at the protection. And that is on his, he's responsible for that. So, it's very hard. And there were many decisions that he's made that ended up being wrong. But what I think that comes down here, which is the main issue, is the idea of appointing him before the results of the how do you say it, tahkir, the investigations. till the investigations are done. And I'll explain why that's the crucial point. Because in the end of the day, a commander that gave 30 plus years of his life to the army, they make mistakes. People make mistakes. The question is, were these mistakes part of the conception? I said they didn't see correctly even how it needs to happen. They planned it wrong, everything. And then I'm saying you are just not the right person to continue with the army for the future. Or were there tactical mistakes that were made? And that's part of being a commander. And that's what the investigation needs to show. If the investigation is going to show, it's sometimes, by the way, you make a correct decision that has the wrong result. So, for example, if there's different cities where people were being unfortunately slaughtered, and there were soldiers outside of the city, but outside of the town, but the decision was for the soldiers to wait until backup comes, until they prepare and they go and organize, and then they go in, and while they were waiting, people are continuing to being slaughtered. That's what needs to be investigated. Did he have that information? Did he understand the situation? Was the problem was that he just didn't understand well enough what was happening there, and then he made a wrong decision, but for the right reasons? Okay, he made a mistake.
So is your issue with him being appointed now, or before the investigation is complete, or anyone being appointed?
So it's both, but inherently in his situation, I'm saying he needs to get the investigation done because we know he's responsible. He's for sure responsible. So if the investigation comes out and says that all of his decisions were made with a clear mind, with good backing for why he made these decisions, unfortunately it didn't work out, there were mistakes made, then I'm theoretically okay with him continuing. But only after the investigations. Some other people are not relevant to the investigations. There's different commanders here. The commanders that are right now in Gaza, many of them had positions that have nothing to do with Gaza. So there's they're not definitely in the investigation. That doesn't delay them. The second part is generally the idea of appointing right now. And that I am vehemently against. Okay? There should be no appointments being done. Definitely not by the Ramatkal Herzl Levy. He has no right to appoint anyone. He needs to go home. He is responsible for the entire event in the first place. And for that reason, he needs to go home. And also, not in general why the war is happening. They need to be temporary appointments. They need to be appointments that are decided. They are full appointments. They go in. They could be a month. They could be a year, and they could be till the end of the war. I'm okay with that, even if it takes 2 years. But there should be a conceptual idea that we understand that the current generals of the army are responsible. They should no longer be continuing until when the war is done. Therefore, and we also know that there's corruption and a problem. There's a reason we got to where we got to. Because there's a conception up top in the army. And we need to fix it. Now, we don't fix it today because we understand that we're an army. We need to be tactical. But in the end of the day, it's going to happen. And therefore, all I'm saying is that the appointments should be temporary for the war, including appointments that I like.
Wait, but would you appoint not them, but a brigadier general? As in, if you're saying a temporary appointment, are we appointing the young brass? Are we moving them up the chain? Or would you move around the generals? Or even bring in someone who retired?
So it wouldn't matter to me. That's the point. All of the options are fine. No. Obviously, it matters. But I'm saying I'm not going to come and tell them how they have to do it. Bring in, if you have someone great that could come back in, wonderful. I wouldn't force it only being people from behind because it's a little naive to think that people that left are perfect. No, we could see it on the news every day. We could see Tamir Haiman, Rosh Amman, horrific. Israel Ziv, Rosh Amman, basically anyone that was the head of the intelligence are all terrible. Okay? Including Kochavi and Herzl Levy. Yeah, basically all of the heads of intelligence the last 15 years ended up being deep in conception until today. But, so I don't think it's better bringing them from the outside. When it comes to the idea of do I move someone up and make him an aloof, maybe, as long as he understands that he might not be there. As long as they understand that their key is sitting, they have a card that sits by the next Ramatkal. They know that different because we all know that when the Ramatkal switches, he doesn't fire the alufim, the seconds in command, the generals. No. But now we know it will be. Yes, when the war is over, whatever time that is, that's going to be a political decision, if we like it or not. When the political event decides that the war is over, therefore the Ramatkal has to step down because he is responsible. He needs to step down from this war, and then we appoint a new Ramatkal, and it's known to everyone that he is going to clean slate, appoint all of the generals from scratch, all of them. Now, an appointment for general doesn't mean that he can reappoint the one that's already there. But they all give in their cards, and he makes a decision and decides if they stay or not. Will it happen? No. We also know that Bagatz, the judicial, will never allow it to happen anyway, because they'll decide is it severe, not severe, to get rid of them, whatever. That's already getting complications of the army itself. But I think that's the way that they should be looking at it.
Okay, so the other side of the story is obviously very public. A few people were sent home. Most notable among them was Brigadier General Ofer Winter. So, first, why don't you give us a little background on the character, and then we'll discuss the event that took place.
Ofer Winter was in almost every combat position there can be, a very serious commander. But in the entrance in Yonatan, when he was heading the brigade that went in, he sent out a letter, which commanders do. This is generally acceptable. They send out a letter or to make a speech to get their soldiers to push forward and get energy. And in that letter, he dared to mention God. He dared to mention worse than God, Hashem, and give a prayer there for the soldiers, which was also explaining why we had the right in the land and we had to go. And that from that moment on, he became the enemy of the high up in command. I am oversimplifying it. There are complications there. He's had some things in the past that were problematic, but many other generals as well also had things that were problematic. And unfortunately, he is unofficially but officially a representative of the right wing of the country, the more active, the more aggressive, the wanting to win wars, which we don't do anymore. And he has been, since Gadi Eisenkot was the Ramatkal, he's just been pushed off and delayed from moving forward. And he was now decided to be removed and given no position. Even on October 7th, he came and said, I'll volunteer for anything. Give me any position that you want, just let me help. And Aviv Kochavi and Herzl Levi made sure that he gets no position and no role. There's a lot of personal vendettas there. I want to specify where I think the issue is, because in the end of the day, that was my subjective view on the matter. I said objective facts, but obviously there are people who could have different views on him and think of him differently. The problem is, again, the question of whether or not the army is an arm of the government, which means an arm of the people. Does the army represent the people?
Before we get into that, I think it is important to note that there was also the story under the government of Bennett, where he had meetings with him that were not approved by the upper echelons.
So, again, this is just getting how we nitpick to, we all know about so many topics. If you dare to be on the right, then be careful because you're going to go to jail. Commanders at that level, unfortunately, and by the way, I'm not even saying that he was okay, talk all day long to politicians and to think, what does that mean? Every single day, 10 times a day, they write Gorem Bachir Batzava, a high-up person in the army. Who is that? Who is that? That means that someone is illegally talking to people. Separate issue, should be fixed 100%, but I agree with you. But that was, but he spoke to Bennett. Remember, not to be clear, not Bennett, the one that decided to form a government with the Arabs. It happens to be the same person, but it was a different Bennett then. Okay, the Bennett of Yonatan was the very malicious Bennett that needs to, that dared to, mention that there's tunnels everywhere. And this was horrible. How dare you mention that? We wanted it to be, not take care of it. And he was like, no, we got to take care of it and mention publicly. So, as a result, he really was been attacked from them. But again, it's connected to what I was saying. He's representing the right. Obviously, he doesn't represent it. He just comes, and that's what he believes in as well. The right-wing views, which are the vast majority of the country. But those views are absolutely not represented in the army in any way, shape, or form.
So, the issue with that I take with that is, it's not that simple. Because our appointment process has some logic to it. As in, it does make sense that the government doesn't go in and appoint every officer, every general, every brigadier general, every lieutenant. A, not practical. B, irrelevant. as in they shouldn't be doing that. They do. They should make the rules that are in place. They should be appointing the chief of staff of the army. That's fair. And then it should be trickled down. But the issue is that you don't do even that top position.
Well, no, I think that I'm not saying they should be naming each one. I think that just like it says that the Minister of Defense should be when he does approve them technically, but I think that he should have even more sway in their approving. I think that he's weak. I think that he's not having them represent. But I think that even if we don't, I think that it should be the army's, the Ramatkal should understand that his job is to represent the people. That's the point. The point is that
No,
if I'm
no, that's overreaching.
100%.
It should not be his job.
Of course it is.
No, you're overreaching. It's overreaching. His job.
Wait, you're telling. One second.
Is to be able to protect and perform the will of the government.
Wait, no, 100%. But he needs to go one other direction. Either he gives zero opinions on what he thinks. I'm just testing him on if he's a good commander or not. Fine, I think it's possible, but let's say. But I'm saying, therefore, if I was the Ramatkal, okay, I can't hide my views. I can't hide that I believe, I'd be going to the government daily and I should be saying I'm pushing for, to be stronger and to attack and give me more opportunities to take more risks. That's my view. I think that we should take more risks.
To the government, not a public view.
100%. No, it doesn't matter. I should take it to the government. But let's say that I don't represent the people, okay? I'm saying not just obviously I'm not chosen by the people. I'm saying my view is not represented by the people. The
Great,
people
doesn't
believe.
matter.
Wait, I should be fired, but I should continue. But I still don't think that I should be trying knowingly to appoint only people that agree with me. That's my issue. I should know to say if this person comes up and he's really a great commander. He's a great commander, but he doesn't look at things the way I do. I should know that he has the right to be there just like any other commander, even if he disagrees with my views. That's what I would say.
You're completely right, and I truly hope for both Ofer Winter and the country's sake that, as he stated in his goodbye to the army, that he is not done. He leaves with his head held high, and that he will continue to serve.
So it's complicated. He's basically saying he's going to go into politics, which is fine, but it's not the same,
I mean, we don't know politics. There are other positions. There are other places. But yeah, and we can only wish him the best. Do we want to talk about any of the other appointments? Blut or anyone else?
I mean, no. We could just mention that in the end of the day, Avi Blut has a lot of potential to make change, and we will be there to wholeheartedly make sure he makes change. The head of Pikud Merkaz, which basically means the head of all Judea and Samaria. He is the commander of all Judea and Samaria, which actually means by law, for those who don't know, that he is basically the sovereign decision maker in Judea and Samaria. He overrides the government. He makes any law that the government passes. The commander, the general of Judea and Samaria, actually signs off on whether or not that law is relevant in Judea and Samaria. So he has the ability to change everything. We hope that he will have the guts and we hope that he remembers where he came from. I hope he does it responsibly. I'm not calling for him to suddenly just, overnight change everything. That's not the way things work. But I hope that just like commanders on the other side of the map know to come and make sure things happen their way, I hope he knows to stand strong and understand that he's no longer, I say this to many people that are going up in the ranks. And I say, obviously, I want you to be yourself. I want you to fight. But at the end of the day, look, there's limitations to power. And if you're, when you are in your first position, second position, third position in the army, if you're going to come fall out fighting with everyone saying, no, we got to do this and this and this and this, against what is accepted, then you're going to be more true to yourself, but you're also just going to find the way out. And there is a certain level, and I think that he has treaded the waters in which he pushed towards his direction, but kind of moderately, But now you are an aloof. You are the second to highest rank in the army. And it is now the position in which you make decisions. And this is the position where you make decisions that are not popular. It makes decisions that will affect change for the future because you have the ability. And Avi Blot has the ability to change for the future. I'm very hopeful to see what he does. With that, I will say that I still, because I need to be fair to myself and objective, still believe it was the wrong time also for him to be appointed.
Very fair. And I think that wraps us up for today.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us. This was our first podcast in video format. So this is really the opportunity to, give us in the comments or shout out to us personally. Let us know what you think. Let us know what we could change, what could be done better. We're going to be here every week to week discussing the political events of the week. You can listen to us on YouTube Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And as I mentioned in the opening of the podcast, we're still working on the name. So please give us what your thoughts are. As of now, here we go again. What is going on in Israel? We might just drop the here we go again. Maybe just call it what's going on in Israel.
We'll see.
Let us know what you think. We'll see you next week.